Girl, for 4 months now you've been bringing me food whenever the boss isn't looking. Let me repay your kindness. Tomorrow, don't come to open the cafe first. Be late on purpose. Let the administrator open it. I'll explain everything the day after. Tomorrow, Lena woke up 5 minutes before her alarm went off. It happened every morning. For the past year and a half, her body had learned to wake up at exactly 5:30, as if an inner guard refused to let her sleep a minute longer. She carefully slid off the couch, making sure the springs didn't creak, and tiptoed to the window. Behind the curtain, night still ruled. Only the street lamp by the entrance cast a dull yellow glow over the snow-covered courtyard. Her mother was sleeping in the room behind the thin wall. Lena paused, listening. The breathing was even, calm. Good. That meant the night had passed without an attack. After the stroke, every peaceful night felt like a small miracle. A year and a half ago, her mother could still walk on her own, spoke almost without hesitation, even tried to help around the house. But a second stroke 3 months ago had confined her to bed. The left side of her body barely moved. Her speech became slurred. And Lena became not just a daughter, but a caregiver, a nurse, a babysitter, all at once. She washed her face with icy water. The hot water had been shut off yesterday. They promised it would be back by evening. She quickly pulled on black jeans and a white blouse, slipped her feet into worn-out sneakers. Her gaze caught the mirror in the hallway, a pale face, dark circles under her eyes, hair hastily tied back in a ponytail. 26 years old, yet she looked every bit of 35. Lena grimaced and turned away, no time to dwell on it. In the fridge there was a little buckwheat left from the night before and 2 eggs. She cooked the porridge, left it in a bowl on the table for her mother, and placed a note beside it. Mommy, heat it up in the microwave. The pills are in the blue box. 2 after eating. I'll be back at 3. Kisses. Lena, her mother, couldn't always read, the letters blurred and tangled, but Lena wrote the notes anyway. Maybe today it would work. She threw on an old jacket, wrapped a scarf around her neck, and stepped into the stairwell. The elevator hadn't worked for 2 months. 4th floor. She had to walk. Outside, the cold hit hard, -15 at least. The snow crunched under her feet, her nose stung from the frost. Lena picked up her pace. It was a 20-minute fast walk to the cafe, cozy corner. She had to be there by 6 to open. The streets were empty. Only a few cars passed by, headlights tearing snowy drifts and bare trees out of the darkness. Lena followed the familiar route without thinking. Her feet knew the way. Her thoughts were elsewhere. The paycheck wasn't coming until next week, but her mother needed medication tomorrow. At least the cafe sometimes had tips. Yesterday, a man had left 200 rubles. Pennies, really, but still something. The cozy corner cafe occupied the ground floor of an old 9-story building on the edge of the city. It used to be an ordinary apartment. Then the owner bought the neighboring one, knocked down the walls, renovated, and opened the place. It turned out spacious enough, 6 tables, a bar counter, a kitchen behind a partition. The interior was simple, wooden tables, checkered tablecloths, framed photos of the city on the walls. Nothing fancy, but locals from nearby buildings came regularly. Breakfasts, lunches, sometimes beer in the evening. Lena pulled out her keys and unlocked the door. Inside it smelled of yesterday's borscht and something sweet, probably leftover pastries. She flipped the switch, and the room filled with light. She took off her jacket, hung it on a hook in the back room, and tied on her apron. Work started immediately. Turn on the coffee machine, wipe the tables, set out the chairs, check what was left in the fridge. At least an hour of work before opening at 7. As Lena was busy with the tables, there was a knock on the window. She flinched. Who would come this early? She turned and saw a familiar figure behind the glass. Vasily, the homeless old man who had been living somewhere in the neighboring courtyard for the past few months. Tall, hunched over, wearing a torn jacket and an old fur hat with gray strands of hair sticking out. His face was weathered, red from the cold, but his eyes were alive, clear, not drunk like so many others. There was something different about them. Attentive. Sharp. Lena waved to him and nodded toward the back entrance. A minute later, Vasily stood by the service door, shifting from foot to foot, clearly freezing. She hurried into the kitchen, scooped yesterday's soup into a plastic container, added 3 slices of bread, and slipped in 2 jam-filled buns. The owner, Gennady Markovich, strictly forbade taking food out. Everything had to be disposed of properly. He had yelled when he once caught Lena with a bag. But she kept doing it anyway, just a little at a time, so he wouldn't notice. For 4 months now, she had been feeding Vasily ever since the day she first saw him digging through a trash bin behind the calf. She cracked the door open and held out the container. Vasily took the container with both hands and nodded, holding it carefully as if it were something fragile. "Thank you, girl." "Thank you." "Oh, come on," Lena waved him off gently. "Eat, Vasily Petrovich. The soup's still hot before it gets cold. May the Lord reward you for your kindness." He always said it like that, serious, almost solemn, with an old-fashioned gravity that felt out of place in the noisy courtyard. At first, Lena used to feel embarrassed. Over time, she got used to it. Vasily wasn't like the other homeless men she'd seen. He didn't drink. He didn't curse. He carried himself with quiet dignity. Once she had asked how he ended up on the street. He'd answered briefly, without meeting her eyes. Life worked out that way. And that was it. He never explained further. Lena didn't push. Everyone has their own secrets. "Be careful out there," she said softly. "It's freezing today. Try to find a basement or somewhere warm to hide. I'll find a spot." "Don't worry," he replied. "You take care of yourself. How's your mother?" "The same. Still bedridden. She needs medicine, and money's tight. Like always." Vasily looked at her for a long moment as if he wanted to say something important. But he stayed silent. He nodded once more and slowly walked back into the courtyard. Lena closed the door and returned to the calf. It was almost 6:57 a.m. Time to open. The first customers arrived immediately. Uncle Kolya, a retired regular, ordered tea and a bagel, as always. And Galia from the next street took her usual seat, coffee with milk and a cheese pastry. Then 6 construction workers came in, loud and hungry, boots stomping snow onto the floor. Fried eggs, sausages, bread, tea, big orders. Lena moved quickly behind the counter. In the kitchen, dishes clattered. Lyuba worked the frying pans like a magician casting spells. By 9 o'clock, the real rush began. People heading to work crowded in for breakfast. The calf filled up fast. Lena carried plates, cleared dirty dishes, rang up orders on the ancient cash register. Her hands moved automatically, but her mind lagged behind. She hadn't slept much. Again, "Hey, miss, waitress." A man in a leather jacket barked from a corner table. "This coffee's cold." "What kind of service is this?" Lena walked over and looked at the cup. It had been poured 3 minutes ago. It couldn't possibly be cold. But arguing was pointless. "I'll replace it right away." "I'm sorry." "That's better." Instead of staring at your phone while customers wait. She clenched her teeth, picked up the cup, and headed to the kitchen. "Being rude again?" Lyuba muttered. "It's fine. I'm used to it. You're too patient, Lenka." "I'd slap someone like that. I need the paycheck." Lena sighed. "Otherwise, I would have told him exactly what I think." She poured a fresh coffee and brought it back. The man didn't even say thank you, just went back to scrolling on his phone. Lena stepped toward the window and took a breath. Outside, heavy wet snow had started falling. It stuck to the glass, then slowly slid down in melting streaks. She thought about Vasily. Where was he now? Had he found shelter? At least he'd have eaten. At least he wouldn't be hungry. At noon, Gennady Markovich, the calf's owner, walked in. He was about 50, large and thick around the middle, wrapped in an expensive shearling coat and crocodile leather boots. His face was red and puffy, his small eyes constantly scanning the room, searching for something, anything, to criticize. "Busy day," he said, glancing at Lena. Pretty good, Gennady Markovich. Morning rush was strong. Yeah? Then where's the revenue? He opened the register and quickly counted the bills. Not much. Why? Mostly breakfast orders. Not very expensive. Then you need to sell more. Push desserts. Extra coffee. Why are you standing here like a toucan? Work. Don't just stare into space. Lena said nothing. Arguing with him was useless. He was always dissatisfied, always ready to shout. He loved money obsessively, counted every penny, cut wages whenever he could, wrote off food as if he were feeding an army. In reality, half of it just spoiled and went into the trash. And what's this? He ran a finger along the windowsill and showed her the dust. Disgraceful. I pay you for what, exactly? I wiped it the day before yesterday. The day before yesterday? And today? Your hands fall off? You want customers sitting in dirt? Lena swallowed the sting of humiliation. He paid her barely 18,000 rubles a month, and even that was constantly delayed. But there was no other job. She had tried, called stores, offices, even applied at a factory. Everywhere the same answer: no experience, no proper education, and a sick mother who needed care. Who would hire someone like that? I'll clean it now, she said quietly. See that you do. Move faster. What am I paying you for? He turned and disappeared into the back room. Lena clenched her fists until her knuckles turned white. Breathe in. Count to 10. Don't snap. Don't lose it. Mom needs medicine. That's what matters. The day dragged on. Lunch rush. Then a lull. Lena grabbed a quick bite in the kitchen, bread with butter and tea. She didn't want more. Her stomach felt tight from exhaustion. Her legs ached. Her back burned. She sat on a stool, leaned against the wall, and closed her eyes. Just 1 minute. Lena. Lyuba shouted. Orders up. Table 3. She jumped to her feet, grabbed the plate of rice pilaf, and hurried out. The chaos continued until evening. Orders, customers, noise, clattering dishes. At 3 o'clock, her phone rang. It was her mother. The voice on the other end was weak, slurred. Lena could barely understand. Medicine, it's gone. Her heart dropped. She rushed to Gennady Markovich. Can I leave early? My mom needs medicine urgently. Leave? Your shift ends at 6. Who's going to cover for you? Please, Gennady Markovich. My mom is sick. She's not well. Everyone's struggling. I am too. I pay taxes, rent, wages. You think it's easy? Finish your shift, then go wherever you want. She'll survive. Nothing's going to happen to her. Don't you dare ruin my schedule. Lena stepped back. Her eyes burned with tears, but she forced herself not to cry. She returned to the dining area and kept working. One thought pounded in her head: make it in time. She had to reach the pharmacy before it closed. If she didn't, her mom would be without her medication for the night, and that was dangerous. Her blood pressure could spike. Another stroke could happen. At 6 sharp, Lena bolted from work without even changing. She grabbed her jacket and ran outside. The pharmacy was 10 minutes away, if she ran. So she ran. She slipped on the icy sidewalk, nearly falling, barely catching herself. Her lungs burned, but she didn't slow down. She burst into the pharmacy. A young pharmacist sat behind the counter, flipping through a magazine. I need Capitan. 2 blister packs. Prescription? Yes. Lena handed over the crumpled paper. The pharmacist took her time, glanced at it, nodded, and disappeared into the back. Lena shifted from foot to foot, counting every second like it mattered more than air. The girl returned with 2 boxes. 840 rubles. Lena opened her wallet and counted out the last of her money. 850. Everything she had left until payday. She handed it over, grabbed the medicine, and ran home. Her mother lay on the bed, breathing heavily. Lena rushed to her, wrapped her arms around her, kissed her forehead. It's okay, Mom. I've got it. I'm here. She poured water and gave her the pill. Her mother swallowed with difficulty and began to cough. Lena rubbed her back, whispering, easy, easy. It's okay. Slowly, the breathing evened out. Her mother's eyes closed. She drifted into sleep. Lena sat on the edge of the bed and lowered her head into her hands. She was exhausted, so exhausted she couldn't feel her arms or legs. She wanted to lie down and not get up for a week. But she couldn't. Tomorrow meant work again. Up at dawn. Back to the cafe. Back to Gennady Markovich and the demanding customers. That evening she reheated leftover buckwheat, ate without appetite, washed the dishes, helped her mother change, gave her nighttime medication, then lay down on the couch under an old blanket. Sleep wouldn't come. Her mind spun. Money, medicine, work, survival. How much longer could she keep this up? She thought about Vasily, a strange old man, homeless, yet carrying some kind of quiet strength. He never asked for anything, only thanked her. He looked at her like he could see straight through her. Sometimes Lena caught herself thinking it was easier to talk to him than to people she'd known for years. He didn't judge. He didn't offer empty advice. He just listened. And somehow that helped. The next day was the same. Early rise, walking through darkness, opening the cafe. Lena brought Vasily some food again, borscht and a cutlet this time. He accepted it, thanked her, but there was something new in his eyes. Worry, something heavy. Lena wanted to ask, but before she could, Lyuba shouted from the kitchen. That evening, when her shift ended, Lena glanced out the window. Vasily stood by the dumpster, but he wasn't digging through it like usual. He was just standing there, staring at the cafe. For a long time. Then he turned and walked away. Strange. Days blurred together. Work, home, mom, work again. Lena was holding on by a thread. One day she went down to the storage room to get flour. The sacks were stacked in the far corner on old wooden pallets. As she dragged one toward her, she tripped and fell to her knees, hitting hard. Wincing, she rubbed the bruise and noticed something behind the pallets. She pushed one aside. Behind it stood 3 more sacks. Thick. Blue. Tied tightly at the top. Lena pressed her hand against one. Something loose inside. Not flour, not grain, something else. Strange. She tried to untie the rope, but it wouldn't budge. Whatever, she thought. Maybe the owner's storing extra supplies. She put the flour back, slid the pallets into place, and went upstairs. She didn't think much of it. That was a mistake. A few more days passed. Lena almost forgot about the strange sacks in the storage room. Her head was full of other worries. Her paycheck was delayed again. Gennady Markovich waved her off. Next week. Next week, but her mom needed new prescriptions. The doctor had added expensive heart medication. Lena counted every coin, saved her tips, but it still wasn't enough. That evening she stayed late. Lyuba left at 5. The administrator Marina at 6. Gennady Markovich stopped by briefly, muttered something about expenses, and sped off in his jeep. Lena was alone. She had to close up, wipe down the tables, mop the floors. She worked in silence, lost in her thoughts. By the time she finished, it was already late. Dusk had thickened outside, streetlights flickered on. She took off her apron, put on her jacket, packed leftover rice pilaf and 2 cabbage pies into a container for Vasily, and stepped out through the back door into the service yard. Vasily was sitting on an old crate near the dumpster, smoking a hand-rolled cigarette. When he saw her, he stood up. His face was serious, almost grim. He didn't smile this time, just nodded. "Here, Vasily Petrovich," Lena said softly, handing him the container. "It's still warm. Thank you, child." He took the food, but didn't open it. Instead, he looked straight into her eyes. "Lena, I need to talk to you." She tensed up. She had never heard that tone from him before. Serious, almost official. "Did something happen?" Vasily glanced around, as if checking whether anyone was nearby. Then he stepped closer and lowered his voice. "Listen to me very carefully. Tomorrow you must not come to open the cafe first. Do you hear me? Don't come. Be late on purpose. Let someone else open it." Lena blinked, confused. "What? Why?" "Don't ask now. I'll explain everything the day after tomorrow, I promise. But tomorrow, do not come first. It's important. Very important. There was such insistence in his voice that Lena felt a chill run down her spine. Vasily Petrovich, you're scaring me. What's going on? Do you trust me? She hesitated for a second. A strange question. Did she trust a homeless old man she had known for only 4 months? And yet something inside her said yes. She didn't know why, but she did. I do, she nodded. Then, do what I'm asking. Tomorrow, don't come first. Be late. Make up a reason. Say your alarm didn't go off. Say something happened to your mother. Any excuse, but let someone else open the door. Not you. Lena stared at him, trying to understand. Vasily looked more serious than ever. In his eyes she saw anxiety and something else. Determination. All right, she said slowly. I'll try to be late. But you promise you'll explain? I promise. The day after tomorrow, I'll tell you everything. He turned and walked away quickly toward the abandoned building where he usually slept. Lena remained standing in the courtyard, gripping the calf keys in her hands. The cold cut straight through her, but she didn't move. She kept thinking about what had just happened. Why such a strange request? And why did fear suddenly settle in her chest? All the way home, Lena couldn't shake the uneasy feeling. Something was wrong. She remembered how Vasily had been looking at the calf these past few days, long, carefully, as if watching for something. And then she thought of the blue sacks in the storage room, tightly tied. What was inside them? And why had Gennady Markovich been so nervous lately? He had been coming by more often, checking things, whispering on the phone. At home, her mother was already asleep. Lena quietly undressed and lay down on the couch, but sleep wouldn't come. She tossed and turned, listening to the sounds outside the window. Her thoughts tangled together. Vasily's voice echoed in her head. Don't come first. Why? What could happen? She remembered his hands, strong, thick-fingered, working hands, and his posture was unusual, almost military. His back straight, his walk firm, despite years on the streets. Who was he really? Where did he come from? How had he ended up like this? Toward morning, Lena finally drifted off. She woke to the sound of her alarm, 5:30 a.m. She got up, washed, got dressed. But when she was about to leave, Vasily's words came back to her. Be late. Don't come first. She stood in the hallway, unsure of what to do. On one side was a strange request from a homeless man. On the other was her job, one she couldn't afford to lose. If she was late, Gennady Markovich would cause a scene, maybe even dock her pay. And she desperately needed the money. But something inside whispered, listen. Trust him. Lena stood there for a minute or two. Then, decisively, she took off her jacket, lay back down on the couch, and set her alarm for 7. An hour late. Let Marina open the calf. She was the administrator and had keys too. Lena closed her eyes, but she didn't sleep. She just lay there, counting the minutes. Her heart raced. It was frightening and unclear, but she had made her choice. At that same time, Vasily had not slept for the second night in a row. He sat in the basement of an abandoned building, wrapped in an old blanket. A candle burned beside him, the only source of light. Vasily stared at the flame, lost in thought. 2 nights earlier, he hadn't been able to sleep. His back ached, a cold was coming on. He lay on his mattress, covered in rags, staring at the dark ceiling. It was around 3 in the morning. Then he heard a sound, a car door slamming. Vasily froze. At that hour, no one came into the courtyard. He got up and looked out through the basement window. A black SUV stood outside. He recognized it immediately. It belonged to the calf owner, Gennady Markovich. 3 men got out. Gennady himself, heavy-set, wearing a sheepskin coat, and 2 others, tall and broad-shouldered, in leather jackets. Their faces were hard to make out in the dark, but their movements were fast, precise, professional. Vasily felt danger instinctively. He hadn't served 8 years for nothing. In the engineering troops, you don't forget things like that. His sense for trouble was still sharp. He stayed by the window, watching. The three men walked to the cafe. Gennady unlocked the door with his key. They went inside without turning on the lights. About 5 minutes later, Gennady came out, got into the SUV, and drove away. The other two stayed inside. Vasily pulled on his jacket, left the basement quietly, and crept toward the cafe. The windows were dark, but he knew there was a back entrance, a service door in the old building. He moved closer. The door was slightly ajar, clearly left that way on purpose. Vasily pressed himself against the wall and listened. Voices came from inside, quiet but clear. "It'll go off tomorrow morning," said one voice. Low and raspy. "You sure?" The second voice was younger, harder. 100%. "The device is under the threshold of the front door. It triggers when the door opens. The blast won't be big, but it'll be enough. There's a gas line nearby. They'll write it off as a leak. And the waitress? She's always the first one in. Every day at 6 a.m., opens alone." Gennady checked. "Always first." The younger man let out a short chuckle. "Too bad, of course. She's young. That's a shame." A hoarse voice let out a dry laugh. "Don't be stupid. She found the merchandise in the storage room by accident. Gennady saw her snooping around in there. Sooner or later she'll figure it out and tell someone. We don't need witnesses like that. Maybe it's easier to just get rid of her?" Quietly. "No explosion? No. This way is safer. An explosion looks like an accident. The police will dig around, won't find anything, close the case, and will move the goods before any serious inspection starts." Clean. No traces. Vasily felt something cold crawl down his spine. Not from the frost seeping through the basement walls, but from pure horror. They were planning to kill Lena, the girl who had been feeding him for 4 months without asking for anything in return. The kind, exhausted girl with a sick mother. He slowly stepped away from the door, barely breathing. His heart pounded so hard it hurt. He had to do something. Now. But what? If he went to the police, who would believe a homeless man? He wasn't even a drunk, but to most people they were all the same. They'd say he was rambling, or worse, decide he was involved and arrest him. Vasily went back down into the basement and sat on the thin mattress. He forced himself to think, to remember. Military tactics, explosives, trigger mechanisms, improvised devices. He had been a sapper. A good one. In Chechnya, he had disarmed mines, roadside bombs, homemade explosives. His hands remembered, his mind remembered. By dawn, a plan had formed. He would wait until the two men left. Then he would warn Lena not to come in first. After that, he'd call the police anonymously and report an explosive device inside the cafe, triggered by opening the door. The bomb squad would come, disarm it. The investigation could take it from there. But he had to be careful. If those men suspected someone had overheard them, they wouldn't hesitate. Vasily knew their type. They didn't hesitate. Around 5 in the morning, the men left the cafe. Vasily watched through the grimy basement window. They locked the back door, walked around the building, got into a black car with no license plates, and drove off. He waited another 30 minutes before stepping outside. He approached the cafe cautiously and examined the front door from the outside. Nothing unusual, which meant the device was likely hidden under the threshold, inside. Smart. He returned to the basement and pulled out an old cell phone he hadn't used in years. He'd bought it back when he still had money. After that, there had been no one to call. The battery was nearly dead, but enough for one call. He dialed the police. "Dispatch. Go ahead. There's an explosive device planted at the Cozy Corner Cafe on Zariknaya Street, Building 12. It's rigged to detonate when the door is opened. Check immediately." "Who is this?" "Identify yourself." Vasily hung up. He removed the SIM card and tossed it away. The phone he hid under the mattress. Now all that was left was to wait and pray that Lena would listen to his warning. He remembered her face, pale, tired, but kind. She never walked past him without stopping. Always asked, "How are you?" brought him food quietly, risking her job. People like that were rare, especially now, when most people thought only of themselves. He couldn't let her die. That would be betrayal. And he had betrayed too much in his life already, himself, his family, his oath. But this, he could fix. Save one life. Maybe then his own would finally mean something. He sat in the basement and prayed. He hadn't prayed in 20 years. But now he whispered the words his mother had once taught him. Lord, have mercy. Lord, save her. Not let an innocent soul perish. At 7 a.m., Lena woke to her phone ringing. It was Marina, the administrator. Lena, where are you? Why didn't you come open? I've been standing here for half an hour. I'm sorry, Marina, Lena said quickly, guilt in her voice. My alarm didn't go off. Mom had a rough night. I didn't sleep much. I'm leaving now, 20 minutes. Lena, this is irresponsible. I can't keep opening for you every time. I'm sorry. Really. It won't happen again. Marina muttered something and hung up. Lena got dressed and stepped outside. She walked slowly at first, strangely unhurried. A strange feeling pressed against her chest, as if time itself had slowed down. She kept thinking about Vasily's words. Why had he told her not to come first? What did he mean? When she turned onto Sarachnaya Street, she froze. There were cars everywhere in front of the cafe. Police vehicles. An ambulance. A fire truck. Flashing lights painted the snow in harsh blue and red. A crowd had gathered on the sidewalk, whispering, staring. Lena's heart slammed against her ribs. She broke into a run. What happened? She pushed through the crowd and saw a familiar face. Uncle Kolya, the retired regular. Uncle Kolya, what's going on? He turned, saw her, and his eyes widened. Lenka? You're alive? Thank God. What do you mean alive? What happened? There was a bomb under the cafe door. Police got here just in time. The bomb squad says someone called anonymously to warn them. They disarmed it. Lena felt her knees buckle. A bomb. Under the door. She was supposed to open that door. Marina? Lena whispered. She's fine. She had just arrived, hadn't opened it yet when the police rushed in. They sealed everything off. Guys in protective suits went inside, worked for about an hour. They say the device was real. Lena sank down onto the sidewalk, dizzy. Vasily. He knew. He warned her. A young police officer approached her, notebook in hand. Do you work at this cafe? She nodded, unable to find her voice. The police officer crouched down beside her. What's your name? Elena Morozova? You're the one who usually opens the cafe in the mornings? Yes, every day at 6 a.m. He jotted something in his notebook and studied her closely. Why were you late today? Lena hesitated. Should she tell him about Vasily? But then she'd have to explain who he was, how she knew him. What if they arrested him? What if they thought he was involved? My alarm didn't go off. I overslept. The officer narrowed his eyes, as if he didn't quite believe her, but he said nothing. He wrote something else down. You're lucky. If you'd arrived on time and opened that door, you'd be leaving in an ambulance right now. Or headed to the morgue. Lena covered her face with her hands. Tears burst out, fear, relief, shock, everything at once. The officer awkwardly patted her shoulder. It's okay. You're alive. That's what matters. He stood and walked back to his colleagues. Lena remained crouched on the pavement, arms wrapped around her knees. Around her, the crowd buzzed, police cars flashed, radios crackled. But she could think of only one thing. Vasily had saved her life. Somehow, he had known. A little while later, another car pulled up, a plain gray sedan. Two men in civilian clothes stepped out. One was older, around 50, with a thick mustache. The other was younger, wearing a leather jacket. They approached the senior officer, showed their badges, spoke briefly. Then the officer glanced at Lena and nodded in her direction. The mustached man walked toward her, studying her carefully. Elena Morozova? Yes. Major Kravtsov, Criminal Investigation Department. May I ask you a few questions? Lena nodded. The major took out a voice recorder and switched it on. You work at the cafe Cozy Corner? Yes. I'm a waitress. How long? A year and a half. The owner is Gennady Markovich Bespalov. Did you interact with him often? He came almost every day. Check the register. The staff. Did you notice anything suspicious? Strange visitors? Conversations? Meetings? Lena paused. Over the past few weeks, Gennady really had been acting nervous, always on the phone, disappearing into the storage room and locking the door. Sometimes unfamiliar men arrived. They came through the back entrance, went straight into the storage room with the owner. She had never clearly seen their faces. They avoided the main dining area. There were some men, she said slowly. I didn't know them. They came in the evenings after closing. They went into the storage room. I don't know who they were. How often? Maybe 3 or 4 times in the last 2 weeks. The major exchanged a glance with his colleague, who immediately headed toward the cafe. Elena, have you ever gone down to the storage room? Yes, that's where we keep flour and supplies. Did you notice anything unusual? Her heart skipped. The sacks, the blue ones tied tight behind the old pallets. She had stumbled on them days ago and thought nothing of it. There were some bags, she said quietly, big blue ones, hidden behind pallets. I found them by accident when I was getting flour. I tried to look inside, but they were tied tight. I assumed they were extra supplies and left them alone. The major stiffened and leaned closer. When was this? 5 days ago. Maybe a week. Did you tell anyone? No. Did the owner see that you found them? Lena's stomach tightened as she remembered. That day, when she came up from the storage room, she had run into Gennady Markovich in the hallway. He was standing by the door, staring at her strangely. Tense. He'd asked what she was doing down there. She told him she was getting flour. He nodded and walked away. But after that, something changed. He watched her differently, warily. And he started stepping outside to whisper on the phone more often. I don't know, Lena admitted, but he might have seen me come up. The major stood and looked toward the cafe, then back at her. Elena, you were in serious danger. Those bags contained narcotics, a large shipment. The cafe was being used as a transfer point. The owner and his accomplices stored the drugs in the back room before distributing them across the city. When he realized you might have discovered the stash, he decided to eliminate the witness. The explosion was staged to look like a gas leak. Lena went pale. They wanted to kill her. Just because she had accidentally found those bags. How did you know about the bomb? She whispered. We received an anonymous call at 5:30 this morning. A male voice reported that an explosive device had been planted in the cafe. We responded immediately. The bomb squad disarmed it 10 minutes before opening time. Vasily. There was no doubt in her mind. Somehow, he had learned about the danger and called the police. He had saved her. Do you know who called? She asked. The major shook his head. An unregistered number. The SIM card was discarded. Impossible to trace. But whoever it was, they saved your life. Lena stood and looked around. She had to find Vasily. Thank him. Ask him how he had known. She apologized to the major and said she'd be right back. Then she ran toward the abandoned building nearby. The basement where Vasily lived was empty. The mattress was there, the old blanket, a few plastic bags filled with worn clothes. But Vasily himself was gone. Lena ran outside, scanning the entire courtyard, rushing behind the garages and peering near the trash bins. Nowhere. It was as if he had vanished into thin air. She returned to the cafe and approached the major. May I ask one more question? Of course. That phone call, the man who called. Could you find him? The major studied her carefully. Do you have any idea who it might have been? Lena hesitated. Should she tell the truth? If they learned about Vasily, the homeless man, how he lived near the cafe, how he watched the place, he could be accused of anything. They might even think he was an accomplice. She couldn't take that risk. Vasily had saved her life. She would never betray him. No, she lied. I just wanted to thank him. The major nodded. If you remember anything important, call me. He handed her a business card. Lena took it and slipped it into her pocket, then asked quietly, "What will happen to the calf now?" "We'll conduct a search and seize evidence. If we find drugs, the owner will be arrested. The calf will be closed until the investigation is over, and I'll be out of a job." The major shrugged. "I'm afraid so. But you're entitled to compensation. You're a victim and a witness. The state will pay you, and if you testify against the owner, there will be additional payments." Lena nodded. The job was gone, but her life was saved. That was what mattered. Everything else could wait. The next few hours blurred into interrogations, paperwork, and formal statements. Lena told them everything she knew about Gennady Markovich, about the strange visitors, about the sacks hidden in the storage room. The investigator wrote down every word, asking precise follow-up questions. Then Major Kravtsov led her back into the calf. She had to show them exactly where she had found the sacks. They went down to the basement. The bomb squad had already finished their work. The explosive device had been disarmed and taken away for examination. Lena walked to the far corner and pointed at the pallets. "Here, behind these crates." The officers moved the pallets aside. Behind them stood 4 large blue sacks. One of the operatives put on gloves, untied the rope on the nearest one. Inside were clear plastic packages filled with white powder. The major let out a low whistle. Heroin. At least 40 pounds. This is a very serious charge. He pulled out his phone, made a brief call, reported the discovery, then turned back to Lena. "Your testimony will put the owner away for a long time. Thank you for your cooperation." Lena was released around 3 in the afternoon. She walked home. She had no money for the bus, and she didn't want to ride anyway. She needed time to think, to process everything that had happened. They had tried to kill her for nothing, just because she had accidentally discovered someone else's drugs. To Gennady Markovich, she was nobody. Just a waitress, easily replaceable. Her life meant nothing to him. And if it hadn't been for Vasily, she would be lying in a morgue or a hospital right now, broken by the blast. Lena stopped in the middle of the street and leaned against a building wall. Her hands were shaking. Only now, when everything was over, did the full horror sink in. Tears streamed down her face. She cried silently, trying not to draw the attention of passers-by. Then she wiped her face with the sleeve of her jacket and kept walking. Her mother was waiting at home. She would have to explain what had happened, calm her down, and figure out how to live from here on. Her mother was lying on the bed, watching TV. When she saw Lena, she tried to smile, but it came out crooked. The left side of her face barely moved. "Lenka," she whispered. Lena sat down beside her and took her hand. "It's okay, Mom. I'm home. Have you been crying?" "No, of course not. It's just cold outside. My eyes are watering." Her mother looked at her with doubt, but didn't press further. Lena gently stroked her hand, then went to the kitchen. She reheated the soup, fed her mother, gave her the medicine, and afterward sat by the window, staring into the courtyard. Where was Vasily now? Why had he disappeared? Maybe he was afraid the police would find him and start asking questions. Or maybe he decided his job was done and it was time to leave. Lena remembered his face when he warned her. Serious, almost stern, clear, focused eyes. Not the eyes of an alcoholic or a drug addict. The eyes of a soldier. Yes, a soldier. She suddenly understood that Vasily had never been an ordinary homeless man. He had a past, a real story. Maybe he had served, fought, survived something terrible, and ended up on the streets. She decided she would find him, no matter what, to thank him, to learn the truth, to help him if she could. That evening, Major Kravtsov called. "Elena, I wanted to inform you we've detained the calf owner. Gennady Bespalov has been arrested on suspicion of drug trafficking and attempted murder. We're still searching for his accomplices, but I think we'll find them soon. Thanks to your testimony, what happens now? Investigation. Trial. You'll be summoned as a witness. Be prepared. And you're entitled to compensation. Go to the prosecutor's office. They'll handle the paperwork. The amount will be significant, no less than $300,000 for moral damages and assistance to the investigation. $300,000. Lena almost couldn't breathe. For her, it was an enormous sum. Enough to buy her mother's medicine for months, pay off debts, even save a little for the future. "Thank you," she whispered. "You earned it." The call ended. Lena sank onto the couch. Her head was spinning from everything that had happened that day. That morning, she almost died. By afternoon, she learned that someone had planned to kill her, coldly, methodically, like she was nothing more than a disposable object. By evening, she was told she would receive compensation, money that could solve more problems than she dared to count. And all of it, every single twist of fate, was because of Vasily, the man she still couldn't find. The next few days were a blur of paperwork and exhaustion. Lena moved from one government office to another, filing for compensation, signing statements, answering more questions. The investigation was moving fast. Gennady Markovich was being held in custody. His two accomplices, the men who had planted the explosive device, had also been caught and arrested. The entire criminal group had been exposed. It turned out they had been supplying heroin to the city for 2 years. The calf had served as their base. The drugs were delivered at night, hidden in a back storage room, then distributed across the city through a network of dealers. A quiet operation, carefully built until it unraveled. Lena later learned that the anonymous phone call had truly saved her life. Forensic experts confirmed the explosive device had been rigged to detonate the moment the door opened. If she had arrived on time that morning, unlocked the calf as usual, the explosion would have happened instantly. The blast was powerful enough to kill a person on the spot or leave them with no chance of survival. Every evening, Lena walked to the abandoned building in the courtyard where Vasily had been staying. She checked the basement again and again. But he was gone. His mattress, his blankets, the plastic bags with his few belongings, all gone. As if he had never existed. She asked around. Had anyone seen the elderly homeless man? One neighbor said he'd seen him about a week ago. Then he vanished. No one knew where he went. Lena was close to despair when, 2 weeks after the incident, she spotted a familiar figure near a bus stop. Tall, gray-haired, wearing the same worn-out jacket. Vasily sat quietly on a bench, staring into the distance. She ran toward him and stopped in front of him, breathless. He looked up. Surprise flickered across his face, then a warm, genuine smile. "You're alive," he said softly. "Vasily Petrovich," Lena's voice trembled with relief. "Where have you been? I've been looking for you. You saved my life." He stood and gently placed a hand on her shoulder. "Easy. It's all right. You're alive. That's what matters. How did you know about the bomb?" Vasily glanced around cautiously, then nodded toward the bench. "Sit down. I'll tell you." They sat side by side. He stared ahead as he spoke, choosing his words carefully. "I saw them installing it. Late at night. I overheard their conversation. Realized they were planning to kill you. I called the police anonymously, then disappeared. Didn't want to be questioned or dragged into it. No one believes a homeless man. They might have thought I was involved. Then why did you come back?" "I needed to see that you were alive. That it ended the right way." Lena studied his face, lined with deep wrinkles, weathered, exhausted. But his eyes were sharp, intelligent, alive. She needed the truth. "Vasily Petrovich, who are you? How did you recognize what it was?" An ordinary person couldn't have figured that out. He was silent for a long moment. "I was a sapper," he said quietly. "Served 8 years in the army, 2 wars in Chechnya. I defused mines, bombs, all kinds of explosives. That's why I recognized the device. I understood how it worked. And how did you end up on the streets?" His jaw tightened. For a moment, he said nothing. Then the words came, as if something inside him finally broke open. "My wife died. Cancer. I was on assignment. Didn't make it back in time to say goodbye. After that, I started drinking. They discharged me. My son turned his back on me, said I was a disgrace to the family. I sold the house, drank the money away, woke up one day at the train station with nothing. Been living like this for 4 years. Lena took his hand, old, calloused, trembling. You saved my life, Vasily Petrovich. I'm so grateful. I'm going to help you. I promise. He looked at her, surprised. Help? How? I don't know yet, but I'll find a way. 3 days later, Lena met with Major Kravtsov at the police department. He had called her in to clarify a few remaining details. When the formalities were done, she gathered her courage. If someone helped solve a crime, she asked carefully, could they receive any support from the state? The major raised an eyebrow. Depends on the situation. Who are we talking about? Lena hesitated, then decided. The anonymous caller who saved my life. I know who it was. The major straightened in his chair. Who? A homeless man. Vasily Petrovich. I don't know his last name. He lived in the courtyard near the calf. I'd been bringing him food for 4 months. He saw them install the explosive device, overheard their conversation, warned me, and then called the police. The major leaned back, thinking. Interesting. And where is he now? I can find him. He's a veteran, served as a sapper. That's how he recognized the device. A veteran? The major frowned. That changes things. If he truly helped solve the case, we can arrange a reward from the investigation fund. And if he's a military veteran, there are rehabilitation programs and housing support available. We'll need to verify his service records. Hope surged in Lena's chest. You can really help him? If he gives a statement and confirms his role, yes, bring him in. We'll talk. Lena stepped outside the station and immediately dialed Vasily's number. She had insisted on getting it during their last meeting, despite his resistance. The phone rang for a long time. Then, finally, a raspy voice answered. Hello? I need to meet with you. Urgently. It's important. He paused. What happened? I spoke with the police, with the major handling the case. I told him about you. He wants to meet, arrange a reward, and offer assistance. Please, come. Lena, I don't want anything to do with the police. Vasily Petrovich, please. Her voice trembled with desperation. You saved my life. Let me do something for you. The major promised help. You might have a chance to start a new life. A long silence, then a heavy sigh. All right, I'll come. Where do we meet? An hour later, they met at the police station. Vasily arrived in the same tattered jacket, but he had tried to clean himself up, shaved, combed his hair. Lena took his arm and led him inside. Major Kravtsov greeted them in his office, examining Vasily carefully before nodding. Have a seat. What's your full name? Vasily Petrovich Gromov. Born 1962. The major jotted it down, then looked up. Elena said you warned her about the danger and called the police. Tell us everything, step by step. Vasily spoke slowly, pausing, but with precision. He recounted the sleepless night, the black SUV outside the calf, the 3 men entering, how he crept to the back entrance and overheard their conversation. He heard about the explosive device, about the waitress who always came first. He realized they meant Lena. He waited until the criminals left, then called the police to warn her. The major listened, taking meticulous notes. When Vasily finished, he asked, Did you serve in the army? Yes, engineering troops, 8 years, 2 Chechen campaigns. Do you have documents? Vasily shook his head. Lost long ago. Everything went when I ended up on the streets. No military ID either. The major thought for a moment, then dialed a number on his office phone, spoke briefly, relayed Vasily's details, hung up, and looked at him. We'll check your information in the military registry. If it's confirmed, we'll issue you a certificate. Meanwhile, give your official testimony about what you saw and heard that night. Vasily testified, signed the protocol. The major shook his hand. Thank you for your help. Without your call, the girl would have died. You saved a life. That's a hero's deed." Vasily looked away, embarrassed. "I just did what I had to. Still, the state will recognize it. You're entitled to a reward of no less than 100,000 rubles. Plus, as a combat veteran, you can enter a rehabilitation center, then a veteran's home with housing, meals, and medical care." Vasily lifted his head. For the first time in a long while, hope shone in his eyes. "Really? Really? Give me a week. I'll gather your documents and arrange everything." A week later, Lena received a call from the major. His voice was bright with good news. "Elena, I have good news. Vasily Petrovich's records have been confirmed. He really served in the engineering troops, participated in combat, and has state awards. He was discharged for health reasons after a concussion. I've arranged for him to enter the Veterans Rehabilitation Center. In a month, he can move permanently into the veteran's home. Plus, I've processed his reward for assisting the investigation. 120,000 rubles. Lena almost shouted with joy. "Thank you. Thank you so much. Tell him to come by the station tomorrow to collect his documents." She called Vasily. He was silent for a long moment, then said in a rough voice, "Girl, I don't know how to thank you. You've already saved my life. Now it's my turn to help you." A week later, Lena received her compensation, 315,000 rubles. She stared at the bank notification, unable to believe it. She had never held so much money in her life. First, she bought all her mother's medicines for 6 months, paid off the apartment debts and utilities, bought her mother a new orthopedic bed, hired a massage therapist to come home. Her doctor said regular therapy would help restore mobility. Then Lena sat at the table with her notebook, counting. 180,000 rubles remained. She could save a little each month, stretching it through the year. And she remembered her long-held dream. She always wanted her own cafe, a small place she would run, not just wait tables. A cozy spot filled with kind people, good food, and warmth. Not like Gennady Markovich's, a hub for criminals, but a real haven where people could rest their souls. She started looking for spaces, calling agencies, checking ads, and found a small place on the first floor of a 5-story building on the city's outskirts. A former shop had closed 6 months ago. The owner was renting it cheaply, 25,000 a month. Lena went to see it. About 50 square meters, clean and bright, with plumbing, sewage, and ventilation. She could set up a small kitchen and 4 tables in the dining area. She calculated everything, rent, renovations, equipment, supplies for the first period, around 150,000 rubles. That left 30,000 for unexpected expenses. It was finally within reach, her dream of a real cafe, a place of her own. Lena signed the lease and threw herself into work with relentless energy for the next 3 weeks. She painted the walls herself, hung wallpaper, scrubbed floors until they shone. At a flea market, she found old but sturdy tables and chairs. She sanded and painted them white, hung light curtains on the windows, and ordered a sign for the cafe, Kind Heart. Vasily helped her. He had moved into a rehabilitation center, undergoing treatment for alcoholism and slowly rebuilding his life, but he came to Lena nearly every day. He fixed outlets, installed shelves, painted walls, working silently, focused, his hands moving with confident, practiced skill. "Vasily Petrovich, you're helping me so much," Lena said one day. "I don't know how to thank you." He smiled. "You've already thanked me. You brought me back to life. For 4 years, I was nobody, a homeless drunk that everyone spat on. You fed me, talked to me like a person. You reminded me I could still be useful. That means more than anything." Lena hugged him tightly. He patted her on the back, stepped aside, and returned to work. A month later, the cafe opened quietly and modestly. Lena baked pies with cabbage, meat, and apples, made borscht, prepared salads, and arranged everything on the tables. She lit candles in small holders and hung a sign on the door announcing the opening. The first 10 guests would get a free meal. The first to arrive was Uncle Kolya, a pensioner from the old cafe. He saw Lena and grinned widely. "You did it, Lena. You opened your own place." "Come in, Uncle Kolya. Have something to eat," she said. Soon neighbors, acquaintances, and passers-by joined in. By evening, all 4 tables were full. Lena moved among them, delivering orders, smiling, chatting with guests, feeling completely at home. Her mother sat on a high stool at the counter, a special spot Lena had made for her. Her mother couldn't move much, but could take orders and operate the simple cash register. She tried hard, despite her speech difficulties, and customers were patient, understanding, some even stopping to chat and support her. Business was uneven at first. Money was tight. There was barely enough to buy supplies or pay rent. Lena woke at 5 a.m., shopped at the market, cooked, served customers, cleaned, falling exhausted at night. But she was happy. This was her venture, her calf. She answered to no one, decided the menu, greeted guests, set prices. Gradually, regulars began to appear. Word spread around the neighborhood, the food was tasty, the prices fair, and the owner was kind. Revenue grew. Within 3 months, Lena could start saving a little. One day, a young man around 30 came in, wearing a clean shirt and jeans, carrying a box of produce samples. "Hello," he said. "I'm Artyom Belov, a supplier of fresh fruits and vegetables. I can offer quality goods at reasonable prices." Lena examined the samples. Tomatoes were red and ripe, cucumbers straight and crisp, apples flawless and fragrant. "Where are they from?" she asked. "Local farms. I handpick everything, no chemicals, all natural, and the prices?" Lena did the math. It was cheaper than the market and far better quality. "Okay, let's try it." Thus began their collaboration. Artyom delivered fresh produce twice a week. Always top quality. Lena was pleased. Over time, they started talking. Artyom was interesting, sharing stories of the farmers he worked with, his plans for growth. He had a small operation, 2 trucks, several contracts with restaurants and cafes, dreams of expanding into a chain of eco-stores. Lena asked questions, intrigued. He spoke with passion, eyes bright with fire, not just working for money, but believing in what he did. Lena felt a spark of admiration. One day, Artyom stayed longer than usual, helping unload boxes of vegetables, then sat down at a table. "Coffee?" he asked. "Of course," she said, pouring a cup and setting it before him. "Sit down." She hesitated. There was still work to do, but something nudged her to join him. Artyom took a sip and looked at her. "I've always dreamed of owning my own calf. Always. I never thought it would happen. How did you manage it?" Lena told him briefly, honestly, about working for Gennady Markovich, the explosion, Vasily, and the compensation. He listened intently, without interrupting. "You're strong," he said when she finished. "Not everyone could survive that." "There was no choice," Lena replied. "I had to survive." Surviving is one thing, but building something from nothing is something else entirely. "You did it. You're amazing." Lena blushed. It had been a long time since anyone praised her like that. Artyom finished his coffee and stood. "I have to go." "But can I come by again? Not for business, just to talk?" "Of course," Lena smiled. From that day, he visited more often, sometimes in the morning before deliveries, sometimes in the evening after work. They drank coffee, talked about life, plans, dreams. Lena spoke of her mother, the challenges of running a calf. Artyom shared his struggles with his business, debts, supply issues. Slowly, a closeness developed between them. Not romantic at first, just human. They found comfort and understanding in each other, connecting with just a glance or half a sentence. One day, Artyom came with a bouquet of daisies, simple wildflowers, nothing fancy. He handed them to Lena. "These are for you, just for being you." Lena took the flowers, pressed them to her chest, and felt tears well up in her eyes. "Thank you, Lena. I want you to know I love being around you. You're special, kind, strong, and real. I haven't met anyone like you in a long time." She looked at him, seeing the sincerity in his eyes, and realized she felt the same. Deeply. "I love being with you too," she whispered. And that's how their story began. Slowly, they built their life together, strolling through empty streets after the cafes closed, catching late-night movies, wandering through parks. Artyom even met Lena's mother, who welcomed him warmly. She could sense that this man would never hurt her daughter. 6 months later, Artyom didn't propose in a fancy restaurant with champagne. Instead, he chose their usual cafe, at the same small table where they always sat. He pulled out a tiny box and opened it, revealing a modest ring with a small stone. "Lena, I want to be with you forever. Will you marry me?" Lena stared at the ring, feeling happiness bloom in her chest. Yes, of course, yes. Their wedding was simple, cozy, and full of love. Friends and family gathered in the cafe, tables were pushed together and decorated with flowers, pies baked fresh. Lena's mother sat at the head of the table, smiling. Her health had improved over the past year, and she could even speak more clearly now. The most important guest was Vasily. He had moved into the veterans' home 3 months earlier, rebuilt his life, completed rehab, quit drinking, gained weight, and looked healthy and well kept. For the wedding, he wore his old officer's uniform from the veterans' home, medals gleaming on his chest. When everyone gathered, Vasily stood and raised his glass. Silence fell. "I want to say a few words," he began, voice steady and strong. "I've lived a hard life. War, loss, hitting rock bottom. 4 years I was nobody, a homeless old man everyone ignored, spit on. I lost hope, my faith in people, in myself. Then one day, a girl, barely making ends meet herself, started bringing me food. Not out of pity, but out of kindness. She spoke to me as a person, didn't just walk by. And when trouble came, I realized I couldn't let her be harmed. That girl gave me back my dignity, and I saved her life in return." We saved each other. He paused, swallowing hard, tears glistening in his eyes. "Lena, Artyom, I wish you happiness. Protect each other, and remember, kindness always comes back. It always does." The guests erupted in applause. Lena hugged Vasily tightly. He stroked her hair and whispered, "Be happy, girl." Life settled into a gentle rhythm. Lena and Artyom rented a cozy 2-room apartment nearby. Lena's mother moved in with them. Lena still cared for her, but now with help, Artyom hired a part-time caregiver. Their cafe thrived. Artyom handled finances, supplies, and gave advice. They became a true team. A year later, they opened a second cafe in a neighboring district, then a third. Growth was slow, but steady. Vasily worked as their security consultant, checking in weekly to make sure everything was safe. Lena paid him a modest salary, but for him, it meant everything. He felt useful again. One evening, the three of them sat in the first cafe, sipping tea and eating pie. Lena said, "Sometimes I wonder, what if that explosion hadn't happened? Would life have gone on as before?" Artyom shook his head. "You'd still be working for that owner, bending your back for pennies." Vasily added, quietly, "And I'd still be in the basement, drinking, degrading, probably dead in a year or two." Lena shook her head. "Fate is strange. That terrible event, it turned out to be our salvation." "No," Vasily said firmly. "Not fate. Kindness. Your kindness started a chain of events. You fed me without expecting anything. I repaid that by saving you. You helped me get back on my feet, and now I help you. That's real life. That's what it means to truly care for each other." Artyom nodded. "Grandpa's right. Kindness always comes back." Lena took their hands, Vasily's wrinkled, warm ones, and Artyom's strong, steady ones, and held them tightly. "Thank you for everything." They sat together drinking tea, talking about the future. Outside, snow fell softly, covering the city in silence. Life in the world continued, rushed, harsh, unfair, but here, in their little cafe called Kind Heart, warmth, comfort, and love ruled. Lena looked at the two most important men in her life, the old man who had become almost a father to her, and her husband, with whom she was building a future. She understood something profound. Life is hard, yes, but it is beautiful, because there is room in it for kindness. And kindness, once planted, always grows and always finds its way back. 2 years later, Lena and Artyom welcomed a daughter into their lives. They named her Nadezhda, Hope. They asked Vasily to be her godfather. The old man's eyes filled with tears at the request. But he started, unsure. "You are our savior," Lena said firmly, her voice steady. "No one else could be better than you." At the christening, Vasily held little Nadia in his arms, gazing at her with a tenderness so profound that Lena felt her breath catch. The old warrior, who had survived war and lost everything, had found a family again. Maybe not by blood, but by heart. Meanwhile, the kind heart calf continued to thrive. People came in, tired, cold, lonely, and left warmed, fed, and filled with a simple, powerful reminder that kindness still exists in the world. On the wall hung a small plaque that Lena had put up on the very first day the calf opened. Kindness, once sown, always comes back. And it was true, pure, undeniable truth. Thank you for listening to this story. This was from the channel Twists of Fate. Apologies for any mistakes. Share your thoughts in the comments, and if you enjoyed it, consider subscribing. M.